Hey, hey. All right. So, welcome back, guys. This is going to be a bonus general message. But before I get into it, let me just mention anyone that is going to be interested in this, you'll want to make sure that you keep your notification bells turned on. I will be going live at some point this week, and I will be doing card pulls, fictional storytelling for my subscribers. I'll be doing this on both channels. So if you're subscribed to both channels, this one and Tarot Dog, that is my other channel, you guys will have two different opportunities. And so I know that many of you are not getting notifications. I've seen all kinds of stuff going on behind the scenes, and this happens from time to time, so obviously, it's just there's a lot of electronic stuff that all has to function just perfectly all the time, and it's amazing that it does so well. But if you have been having problems getting notifications for my channel, and when I put content out, one of the things that I have been told tends to help is unsubscribe and then resubscribe, and then make sure that you click that notification bell so that you will know when videos come out, and particularly so you don't miss out on this week's time frame where I'm going to be going live. Also, just be mindful, I am a fictional storyteller. I'm not a psychic. I'm very upfront about that. Always have been, always will be. So be mindful. I will be doing fictional storytellings. I don't answer questions or make predictions. Instead, I tell stories. And so just so you know, whether or not you want to show up for card pulls and have a story specifically for you possibly be told, now you know that really is all it is. I've just recently had a lot of people screaming at me, as happens from time to time, because they think that I'm trying to predict everybody's life, but I'm not. I wish I had the gift to do that, but I don't. But I'm a damn good storyteller. That's my gift. So with that in mind, I hope you guys always have a fun time. I hope it's just a gentle reminder to everybody out there. I'll always try really hard to refer to our characters as exactly that, characters. And so when you watch my channel, when you watch my content, or if you are the recipient of a card pull sometime this week, just be mindful of that I'm going to tell the story of what's going on with a character, and from that, maybe it'll be fun, and maybe it'll be entertaining, maybe it'll be inspirational, maybe we'll be able to think about, hey, how would I do things different if I were that character, knowing full well we live in the real world where we make our own decisions. Also, if you're having a lot of trouble deciding whether or not this kind of content is upsetting to you, please don't watch it anymore. You have to seek this out. So just remember that if you're upset by fictional storytelling and it's making you irate, because things aren't coming true, well, I didn't say they were going to come true, but also if you're just upset as a whole, don't watch fictional entertainment. Like, choose documentaries, choose music, choose something else, but don't hate watch. Don't come here and be super mad. I want people to have a really good time, but it's really important from time to time that I remind everybody of these things, because I see it in the comments and I go, okay, so I think it's time for me to make the re-announcement of that. So sorry, I know many of you have been with me for many years and you know all this, but I apologize that once in a while I got to just reiterate it. And it's really important to me that everybody has a good time. So let's get to this. All right. So I love different inspiration for different topics. That's how I tell stories. And as you can see, we got some white owls. Well, that's because we're coming up to the hunter's moon. So the hunter's moon is actually, literally, it is the brightest moon that we will have of the entire year of 2024. It is called the hunter's moon, although there's lots of different names for it. If you read up on this in the Old Farmer's Almanac, that's usually where I always go, because I kind of like the more factual aspects of especially like the moon cycles and the moon names and such. But that's going to happen. We're going to have the full moon on the 17th of October. So I'm just a little bit ahead of that because I've got to have time to get to all the zodiacs. But I thought it would be fun to go with a really lovely hunter. And he looks like he's shining with the energy of the moon. So owls tends to be the kind of like either the wise speakers of guidance, or they can, in some mythology, they are the ones that are like the ancestors on the other side, but they tend to be associated with wisdom and guidance. And so I thought that would be a nice tip of the hat. And as illuminated as he is, I thought, since this is a really bright moon, let's keep all that in mind. So For this general bonus message, I usually start these out with some kind of inspiration that comes from something real, something with my dog, but I've talked enough. Let's just jump into this. Sorry about all the talky talk in the beginning. That's just important once in a while. So we got a King of Cups upright, a Four of Cups with the Hermit in the reverse. So to look at a message that might be literally, you notice how it almost looks like this little dude is like embracing me, kind of. I'm going to say that this is a comforting message, number one, but it's also an important message coming in for this character. We have a King of Cups that is kind of sitting here and he's drinking. I'm hearing one bourbon, one scotch, and one beer by John Lee Hooker. But this kind of, I'm not saying he's just sitting there drowning out his sorrows, because he's a King of Cups upright. So he has a lot of love in his heart, but there is a big sense of disappointment or disillusionment. And it kind of looks like, I almost want to say in this storyline, we have a character who might be intentionally trying to loosen up their tongue because they want to communicate. They want to come out of hermit's mode. Hermit mode, Virgo energy here. By the way, we have the owl once again, but with the hermit's energy going into the reverse, that's when the silence needs to come to an end. That's when there needs to be chit chat. That's when there needs to be communication. But I'm getting this vibe off of this storyline. We're going to tell a story about possibly a masculine who's had like a lot of thoughts that he hasn't ever expressed. And although we think that he should be able to express a lot because, hey, he's a King of Cups, just because a character feels a lot doesn't mean they have the gift of communication. And we don't know why he maybe hasn't said the things that he needs to, but we see kind of the pale outlines of the roses behind him. So it's like he's held a lot of love. I always look at roses and flowers that are blossomed like that as like fully formed emotional context about romance. So it's like in the back of his mind, he knows exactly, there's no question mark about who he loves, about what he feels. But this almost looks like he is sitting down and he's having one or two drinks for courage, is what I would say, because he's realizing, I'm drinking because I'm unhappy right now. I'm having a couple drinks, but I'm also doing it because I got to find the courage, maybe. I mean, he could be about to drunk dial somebody. Now, I don't usually talk about too much about, like drinking, getting drunk in my storylines, but we've got it right here on the card. So I tell the story that we see, right? He could be on the verge of, I feel like this is a drink for courage, right? So that he can find words that he hasn't been able to say. Page of Wands. And we got these little signs. Page of Wands, and pages are our messengers. Page of Wands is the first step toward something that, a character wants to go ahead and say. They have a spark, they have an idea, they've got something that they need to say. And we've got the road signs that they're pointing opposite directions here. Let me see if I can actually read what they say. Travel and explore. So travel is the red sign at the bottom pointing to, well, it would be to my left. And then the explore is the blue sign pointing to my right, but of course everything's reversed in the cameras. I gotta say, and we have a telescope on this card. We have indicators that this is kind of new for him. This idea of communicating emotions can be very, very new, which is interesting. I'm only chuckling because King of Cups, you have so much to offer, darling. You've got so much love to give. Four of Swords, somebody took his voice away. He's just now hatching. He's just now, birds, they sing, right? Oh, I love that song by Sia, Had a Voice, but I could not sing. And in it, she's basically saying that she will, I don't care if I sing off key, I'll shout it out and I'll sing for me. I can't even think of the rest of the lyrics of that, but I can hear the rhythm, and oh my God, I love Sia. She's so incredible. But I feel like they're just now hatching their voice, whatever that means. Maybe they came from a family where their voice was pretty suppressed, and they're at a point now where, whatever they learned in the household, whatever they learned in the nest that they were born into, they're finally hatching and they're finally finding their own bird song. That Four of Swords is also, it can be associated with silence. Don't speak, you listen. don't speak, listen to what I say. Now, sometimes it can be about healing. Sometimes it can be about we go silent so we can listen to the messages of the universe. But I'm going to say, because of the bird nest here, there was some kind of mixed up energy given to this king at one point in time. Please remember that could be a woman just as easily as a man, but because we saw a king, I'm going to say him, but I don't read for genders in my stories. But there is this vibe of like when he was in the nest, that was, said to be, this is your safe space, this is where you belong. But now this is also how you listen to our rules, which of course all parental figures, bird or human, probably all have their rules of conduct for their children. On my house, my rules until you become an adult, and then you go out and you make your own life and you decide how you're going to behave. But I'm wondering if they ended up being so heavily steeped or so rigidly steeped in those rules. You listen, you don't speak, that it really made, maybe he's an empath, maybe he's a real sensitive, amazing, I feel like he's a beautiful spirit, beautiful person that we're describing. He has a lot of love, he has a lot of kindness, a lot of softness, and he's just now finding his voice. Anne Marie, thank you, Angel. You are so sweet. Thank you, baby. Wow. So in this particular deck, which, by the way, I'm really in love with. This is a Tarot of the Black Rose, FYI, if anybody was wondering. We have Karmic. And this is an additional card in this deck, obviously. And I seriously, I'm getting the willies looking at it because I do not like serpents. And I particularly don't like it when they're all coiled up. It's so yucky to me. But there's actually two of them interwoven to each other with that. It's like that sword has made sure that the heart had to stay put. So it wasn't even just that they learned that this King of Cups learned something maybe back in the nest where it was like, you don't speak, you just listen, you do what we say. But that might have even pushed him or driven him into other relationships that mimicked that. He ended up with a karmic. Maybe his karmic went through the exact same thing. You don't speak, you listen. Maybe both of them had a lot of power exerted over the two of them. Maybe that's, sometimes you talk about karmics like, oh, that karmic is the evil one. That's so bad. They did terrible things. They are manipulative. This storyline does not. It gives a whole different spin on what, to me, karmic is just a cycle that should be broken. But when we keep doing it, because we maybe even subconsciously know we should break it, but we just haven't figured out a way to break away from that NASCAR loop going roundy, round. It just kind of feels like we do Groundhog Day again and again, even if we don't love it, even if we don't like it, even if this isn't right for us, we keep doing it because we haven't figured out how to break away from that roundy round thing. And so it doesn't have to mean anybody is bad. Sometimes they haven't figured out where the exit is to get off that loop, or sometimes they don't want to, because even if something's unhappy, it still is better or less scary than breaking away and going into the unknown. But in this storyline, it looks like our king had some kind of a connection with a karmic, maybe a romantic partner, maybe he was married to somebody that was much like himself, maybe a little suppressed, maybe didn't have their own voice. And if the two of them were either encouraged to be together by maybe overbearing family members, or just, again, maybe they found themselves in something that almost seemed easy, and then neither one knew how to say, hey, we're not even right together. This represents a very different kind of a karmic cycle. Nobody's bad, nobody's wicked, nobody's trying to hurt each other, nobody's trying to manipulate each other. But we got these two serpents, both of whom really need to change, right? They got to shed old skins. They got to go ahead and find some truth. But it's really hard when their hearts have been, like if you stick a little dagger through a piece of paper, you nail that piece of paper to, whatever, your little message board. But in this case, it was like their hearts. Yeah, I know that I don't really like being here, but I don't know how to undo it. And we're both in the same. So neither person's saying goodbye. That's kind of where he's been. And we have a Queen of Pentacles. She's upright. This is not his karmic. This is the person he loves. This is the person that he's about to have a couple drinks and put a phone call out to. She doesn't have to be a she, and she doesn't have to be an earth sign, but she shows up that way. She's got a whole dress made out of blooming roses. She loves him too, from what I can see. We got a little bunny oftentimes associated with her. A lot of fertility here. She may look really good in emerald greens and soft pinks. I don't know if she knows that this is coming, but this is the context of him getting ready, having a couple of drinks for courage, so then he can break the silence. I don't know if it's a phone call or what, but we just see that there's a message coming through. But it might not just be a message, it might be because we have that map and we have a compass and we have the telescope. It might be more than that. It might be a message to say, I'd like to come see you and talk to you. It might be something that he needs to say face to face. And it might be because he's flying the nest, flying the coop. If he was in a marriage or a relationship with a karmic and it was very approved of by the family, perhaps, if it was very, supported by the family and that was particularly hard to walk away from. Let me ask, what was your perception, King of Cups? What is your perception about the karmic? Before we even get to the Queen of Coins, what is it that you've learned? Because we know you want to break the silence. We know that you have a lot of love that you've carried for a while. And we also can see that at some point you were very disempowered. What is it that you have learned about your karmic cycle that you were in? And I definitely think that they were with another person, maybe long-term marriage or something. 6 of Wands, 5 of Wands. So, you know what? This is also a really nice spin on karmic. We are not vilifying this. What we're saying is the karmic cycle was something that helped him more than almost anything in his life. It made him say, God, things need to change. What we're doing, what I'm doing, what my partner is doing, we're both not having a voice. And you know what? I really want to feel successful at some point in my life. I want to feel like I'm in charge of my own life. I want to win the race of life. We have this like champion horse on the 6 of Wands. So how do I do that? The 5 of Wands is thinking through things, thinking almost like how to, we have like a very, almost like Revolutionary War kind of scene going on here. And it's almost like the fight for independence is the way I would interpret that card. It's being in a never-ending loop with a partner who was much like himself, who had much the same, identical lack of a voice, lack of personal, I don't want to say courage. It's not that they lacked courage. It's just, I think that they were both really oppressed. And I think watching that in his karmic partner actually really helped him say, this is not good. We need to fight for independence. I don't want to be without a voice. I see that in my karmic partner and I realize I too have not found my voice and I want that. So what do I need to change to get that? It almost seems like he has a lot of compassion for his karmic partner who was maybe just as oppressed as him. Maybe the karmic relationship is every bit as important as any beautiful, loving, soulmate, 2 of Cups, any other kind of relationship we could talk about, because this certainly says he looked at the stuck energy that was being reflected identically in his karmic, but he didn't say, oh, you're bad. He said, boy, we need to find our voices. I want to be more successful than this. What's it going to take? And I almost think that he probably looked at his karmic with a lot of compassion. Like, I want you to find your voice too. We're two kind of souls that have been held captive. We both should be able to break away from this and find our own voices. We have the moon, we have the star. Yeah, this is like, he put a lot of thought into how come we've been doing this thing? How come, what is it that needs to heal in us? Obviously, there's stuff that needs to heal. I don't know if, he's been spending a lot of time thinking all of this out. He's been spending a lot of time asking himself, why am I in a karmic connection? Why is my karmic with me? Why do neither one of us have a voice? When, from what I can see, I don't think that they're very happy together. They both need to grow and change. They're actually kind of preventing each other from changing if they stay together, but they're also one another's greatest mirrors to hold up and say, God, the way you're behaving is exactly the way I'm behaving. And this needs to change. The only thing is, I don't know if his karmic partner can see it the same way. And I think that's what he's saying is, I don't know if you see the need for us to change, but man, I know that you need to heal and I want you to heal. And I know that somewhere deep down, I'm going to have to make a change. I think he's been really worried. He might have stayed with the karmic because he was worried about them. If you don't feel the same impetus to go find your own voice, and then I walk away from this to go towards somebody that I actually love, what happens to you, my karmic? This is not him being in love with his karmic. This is him seeing a fellow, like, well, we'll say, let's use this as an example. If a couple people were in like a car accident and they're both sitting there and they're like, we need to go for help, right? We slid on some black ice and we spun around and we got a, bump on our fender, but we also kind of, twisted up both of our knees at the same time. And he's sitting there going, well, we could sit here for hours and hours and hours, or we should get out and try to wave down help or something like that. Maybe they have to be able to be visible. And he's saying, if I leave him or her in the car and I go up to the road to flag down help, I wish they'd come with me instead. Maybe I should just sit here and stay with them because I don't want to leave them by themselves because they're going to be scared without me. And I know because we've both went through the same thing. We both have an injured knee, but maybe they're a little bit more fearful. Maybe they're not really at the place where they're looking for a resolution and they got the courage to, we could hobble together and maybe get to some help and then we both get better. Or can I, in good conscience, hobble up to the road myself and leave them in the car, even though I'm still trying to, send help to them? It feels like there's this guilt aspect or this concern, maybe not guilt, but I think he's just now realizing that. But he actually really wants, I'm going to say her, his karmic, to heal as well. Like really, truly cares about her, which I think is a great testament to, and even lends credence to the fact that he indeed is a King of Cups. He is a very loving person, even toward his karmic. He is sensitive to what her plight is. He is sensitive to the situation that he has found himself in, and someone who he understands. He understands his karmic very well because he too is the karmic, but he's growing beyond it. And I don't know, I feel like he hasn't wanted to, like, quote unquote, abandon his karmic. Let me just ask, this is a real interesting story. Actually, I'm really enjoying the very different textures to this one. Okay, so we have a King of Pentacles, we have a Three of Pentacles, and we have a King of Swords. He's reaching that point where he may not be able to sit in the car with the wounded knee with his karmic anymore. You can do that for so long, but eventually it's like, listen, you can't be too scared for me to go out and go get help, and you're too scared to come with me. But this has to change. This really does have to change at some point in time. I think he's had some kind of a dialogue with his karmic that it's not that I don't care about you, I do, but I have to move beyond this cycle. I have to exit the vehicle now. Sitting here in a broken down car, sitting here and still being someone who hasn't found my own voice, when in fact I have. I want to move on from even this connection with us, because we both know we got kind of mushed together and we haven't yet spoken up for what we wanted in life and moved towards something that we wanted in life. This is one of those delicate situations where he has a lot of caring for his karmic, but he and the karmic, neither one of them is actually growing in that connection. They're not even right together, and they both actually know it, but it appears that he has had to really get his mind wrapped around, is it okay? Is it okay that this is not where I want to be? And what obligation do I still have to a partner who maybe doesn't want to be here either, but they don't have the same courage to move beyond this because maybe they want to stay where it's comfortable. I mean, he might also be assuming that. I don't know if that's really true, but he's reached that point where it's like he keeps thinking, I'm still going to be caring about my karmic. How do I become a King of Pentacles so I can match with that Queen of Pentacles when I still will always have to care for my karmic? Maybe he sees them as not as capable of moving forward in life, but he's reached a decisive thought process where I can still care and maybe even check in to make sure that my karmic is okay, but I also have a duty to my own life to move forward. And I can lay out boundaries of caring about someone is not the same as staying married to them. Caring about somebody and making sure they're still okay is not me being married to them. I'm allowed to move on. I'm allowed to love someone that I choose of my own free will. I'm allowed to do those things. He really had to get to the point, again, this is him finding his voice. I can love somebody that I choose. I am not forever beholden to a partner that I was either pressed into connecting to. And I said yes because I was damaged, and so were they at the time. I don't have to remain in a cycle that is wrong for me. I can find my own voice and without feeling that immense guilt or feeling like I'm abandoning someone. This is so, I love the sensitivity to this storyline and the multiple layers of, you know, why is somebody in a karmic cycle? It's not for fear. It's not for negative, like attachment to, toxic behaviors. It's none of that. This is a really gentle story about how a character might have found himself for a very long time unable to let go of a karmic, and none of it is for the wrong reason. It's really showing a huge amount of human compassion, and it's showing the delicacies of wounded individuals trying to be able to move forward and how hard that is. Let me just ask, let's stay with this deck for a minute. Karmic, do you have a voice in this right now? Do you have something to say? The universe. You know what? I think that the karmic, even if we'll say she could have been an Aquarius. We don't know for sure, but she did show up as a star card, at least in his mind. She knew that this day would come. And in fact, she has wanted it to come, the day when they would actually like separate. So she too could have a new cycle, but I don't think she ever had the courage to end it herself. It's not like, oh, I've been waiting for you to leave me so then I can be, finally, it wasn't on, I didn't have to do the difficult thing of putting an end to this. I don't think it's that exactly. I just think that, I think she's stronger than perhaps he's given her credit for. Look at this. We have the Lovers for her. She has known for a very, very, very long time that she too would like to be free to go meet somebody else. This was some karmic connection where they really were not in love with each other, but they were a unit. That's the best I can say. Not even a relationship, but a unit. And that breaking away, for some reason, the burden of ending it was on, in this case, our king, our masculine energy. But that feminine karmic that we've been talking about, this is the perfect time for them to part ways. She's very amenable to this. And she, in fact, is, I think, I don't want to say she's like, oh God, I'm so excited. I can finally match up with a soulmate that is meant for me. But there is a little bit of that. It's like, sometimes, let's put it this way, because I've had this happen to me before. I really didn't want to continue working at a certain place, but I hadn't yet, put in my 2 weeks notice because I was like, I'm not finding another job opening that I think is a better move from where I'm at. So what do I do? And I always kind of, for my own self, if it hasn't presented itself yet, if things haven't clicked into place yet, then it might not be the right time yet, but continue to know, I know that I'm going to be leaving this when I see the right thing. And I actually would put an effort to looking, and I still didn't find anything. And then finally the business closed, and it was, a couple months down the road, and it was just so serendipitous and so crazy. And then I found a terrific job after that. But here it was, I was ready to make it happen. I kept thinking it was me who had to make it happen, but I couldn't seem to do it because I didn't see anything else available. And so I just kind of floated along, knowing that change was in the wind, and I was amenable to it when it happened for me. And I feel like that's the best way I could describe this ending for the karmic. In her mindset, it's like, this has been needing to happen for a long time, but it wasn't me that should say it. It was him. And maybe that was an important part of his journey, for him to find his voice. Maybe her finding her voice, or maybe her karmic aspect was a little bit different than his. So this was his chance to end a karmic cycle, to claim his voice, to step into a different energy. And maybe she was giving him space for that, even if she didn't realize that's why she was letting this happen on his timeline, not on hers. She undoubtedly has something for herself as well that is, like a breaking away of the karmic cycle. It has to do with romance. It has to do with Let me just check and see. Was she in love with somebody else all this time? 5 of Swords, and that chess game, the outline of a chess game. I don't know exactly what her like karmic resolution is, but her cycle that needed to come to a completion has something to do with stagnancies, endings, new beginnings, particularly around love, and particularly around like holding on to either hostilities or being able to release old ideas so then she could fully embrace. Like, I don't know if she, maybe part of her karmic behavior was maybe she loved somebody else, but she was still irritated that the person she was with wasn't like, with that King of Cups, she knew wasn't her perfect person, but she was more irritated, more frustrated about like, how come I ended up with you when there's somebody else I wish I had ended up with, but then she wasn't making that change. Something along the lines of there's this hostility about the moves that were made, and yet there is this other lover that she's delighted because she now has a chance to pursue a different romance. It's the romance she should have maybe been with all along. It's not that different from the King of Cups finally being able to, let's go back to our original part of the story, how this story began 30 minutes ago, was we have a King of Cups who is getting a couple sips of liquid courage before he reaches out to talk to this Queen of Pentacles. And it is, I believe it is to convey all that which we have described between himself, the karmic, the ins and outs of why he was with a karmic for so long, the ins and outs of why it was so difficult to leave behind a karmic, the ins and outs of, what he has now actually done. He has actually put up boundaries. He's actually ended things with a karmic. And I just wanted to check in on the karmic because I didn't feel like somehow that character was unimportant. I mean, that was a vastly important character. So now let's turn to, sorry, this is so long, guys, but now we got to turn to the message about this Queen of Coins. How is this Queen of Coins? So let's still stick with this. I never stick with one deck this long, but I'm just enjoying this one. We have the Sun in the reverse and we have the Death card. So in regards to the Queen of Coins, in her world, she has changed a lot. She may or may not even be the same Queen of Coins that king remembers. Unhappiness has changed her, but change usually, when we go through the Death card, it's a death with a rebirth. So we actually come out fresh as a daisy all over again. So even if there was tremendous unhappiness, maybe that unhappiness came from the fact that he chose to stay with a karmic, even if she didn't understand what happened or when or why, but that level of unhappiness pushed her through a transformation. Like I say, the best thing is, though, when you transform, you're reborn as a nice little innocent baby all over again. There's a lot of hurt and pain or unhappiness that has been left behind. That could have been, wow. Okay, so we have the twin flame card, and anybody who's watched my channel any length of time, you all know that I feel very differently about the whole twin flame concept. I don't actually agree with most of the mythos surrounding it, and please know this is not to challenge anybody or say I'm right, everybody's wrong. I don't care what anybody believes. Believe how you believe. The world is a richer place because we all have different perspectives, right? But I'm just going to say it this way. I just, as much as I'll say about the concept of twin flame, I just view it as a profoundly meaningful connection. And that's where I'll leave it. So let's apply it in that context. Because we have this Queen of Pentacles who was desperately unhappy. When the sun goes upside down, clouds are in the way, lack of clarity is there. That was the biggest howl I think I've ever heard Aries do in my entire life in Aries' entire life. I'm really sorry. He's a good little protector, but maybe I was talking about, maybe she howled with hurt and pain sometimes. Maybe this Queen of Pentacles said, this is unbearable pain for me. I can't keep loving somebody who stays with a karmic instead of with me. I have howled many times, maybe at night, not during the daytime because the sun's in the reverse. But I can't do this. I got to change. I got to change my perception. I got to change how I look at something. This experience pushed her through a transformation. And with that twin flame here and that 3 of Wands, I would say we see that the heart is literally like crying, right? And we see these two souls that are sitting, but in their own little bubbles on either side of the heart. The love is there, but even love is crying for these two. And they sit in their own little hermetically sealed isolation chambers. But the love is there. And if that's what she came to the conclusion of, if this is what her rebirth is, oh my God, Aries, he sounds like a full-blown baby wolf. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm doing this live right now. I would totally stop and just edit this, but I can't do it until after this whole video processes. So please forgive me. I know you can hear the barking. And I know that the mic picks it up, even though he's like way down at the other side of the house. But this feels like they, in her mind, she came to the conclusion, it's not that song that Baby Sometimes Love Just Ain't Enough. It's not that song. It's more along the lines of sometimes the love is there, but there's not much we can do about it. The love, we have to sometimes accept that the love is there, even if I'm not with this person. It doesn't actually negate the fact that the love it does exist, though. The same way, if I take a drive out into the desert or to the ocean or to the mountains and say I live in a completely different environment. Let's say I live at the ocean, but then sometimes I drive all the way into the desert. The desert still exists even when I turn around and go back home to the ocean. It still exists. I got to see it. I got to experience it. And then when I leave it, guess what? It's still there. I'm just not the one who's present, but I still have the memories and the photographs of it. And I think she had to come to that conclusion and say, it still exists for me, but I do have to move on because it continues whether or not I've got to go get my baby. I've got to go get my baby. It exists no matter what, but I do have to move forward with my life. And that was her transformation. Aries, my love, come here, baby. I have never heard him bark this much. Diana, you're adorable. Aries, come here, babes. Come here. I think there's somebody at my door, to be honest. I'm going to get one more card here. I'm so sorry, you guys. How bad is it? Is it awful? We have the Hierophant. She really, okay, maybe my baby is settling. The Hierophant stands, I love it in this deck, especially because we have the Tree of Life and it's magnificent. And it talks about looking at life and all the branches of one's life. This is still on her side. This is the Queen of Pentacles. This is still just talking about what's happened in her world. How has she handled this? I don't know why, but I kind of feel like she's recently come to this conclusion that she looks at this experience that she had with them, the hurt, the pain, the way it made her change her perception about love and the ability or inability to be with somebody that we love truly, madly, deeply. I'm not saying she fully released it. She just said, it exists for me in memories no matter what. And I know that there was love between myself and this king. And I know that that was true. And I could cry over it my whole life because why can't they be beside me all the time? Or I could say, but you know what? I met somebody that I loved and they loved me too. And so now I move forward and maybe I can look at it as like a warm memory. In my life, all the branches of the trees of, my tree of life will have many different branches. I will have many different twists and turns. Somehow this was an experience that enriched my life. I know that this person did love me. At the end of the day, I know that he loved me. But I've connected more to my higher self and I accept the fact that I must keep growing. Now, that's where she's at. I don't know if she has any clue that she's about to get maybe a drunk dial or something coming from this King of Cups. Temperance, she's in the right energetic space to hear from them, that's for sure, because she's very at peace. She's changed a great deal. I don't know what would have happened if they had tried to reach out any sooner before she had gone through this massive transformation where she basically said, it's almost like, you know, in some cultures, they keep the story of an ancestor alive by continuing to tell stories about the ancestor, talk about the ancestor. And every time that they talk about the ancestor, it's because the ancestor's still with them. It's still an integral part of, you know, like my great great grandfather. And it's like the grandchildren, 3 generations or 2 generations removed, know all of the tales of their great 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 grandfather, and the feats and the things that he was known for. And it keeps it like that character is alive in the children's minds. So they grow up feeling like they know that, you know, ancient generations past, because you're still with me, because I know all about you. And I feel like that's the equivalent of the way she has held on to this. I know all about you. You'll always be with me, but I can release and I can keep living because this is my time to live, but you're with me. And she's in this amazing head and heart space where she's so at peace, because it's like, even if it only is a memory, the memory is actually just as real because it happened to me. It was real. So it still is real. It still exists in time and space. And that sense of peace and calm, I can understand why this is the time, if there was ever a time, for him to be able to reach out to her after the hurt and pain that she's been through, and what it pushed her to actually like change her concept of love and attachment. She changed her concept of this so she could keep growing. Essentially saying she's not, I'm not saying she was ever codependent or needing, like I need you beside me. Or that now she's like, okay, open relationships are cool. You know, it's nothing so extreme as that. It's more like, how do we make peace with what we've already had, but we have no power to, you know, make that person make the decision to come be with us. We have to make it okay. But also there is something to be learned in that. Of course, it is okay because everyone does what they must, and we have to continue to live and grow, and there will be other adventures, and our life story doesn't end just because a lover that loved us and that we loved in return cannot be with us right now, or maybe at all. And that kind of ability for her to conceive of that has brought about this wonderful sense of energetic peace and calm. So if this is the time that they're reaching out to her, let me tell you, she's in a very receptive, very calm, very, I'll use the word mature, but I don't want to imply that she was immature beforehand. We've got the 8 of Swords upright. We've got the 7 of Swords. She's in a place where she's at peace with, and this sounds, bear with me on this one, give me some grace on this one, because it says she's actually even at peace and like a compassionate comprehension of why they stayed stuck with the karmic. We even have the bird cage here, and we have the 7 of Swords, which is lying sometimes and running away, but we have this little ice cold Arctic fox, and we got those mountain peaks. Mountains are obstacles. This is a pretty ice cold place to stay. It's not like they ran away to intentionally stay in an unhappy connection, but they definitely, she understands or can comprehend, or can be, her ears can be open and her heart can be open to being able to comprehend what they're going to say to her on the other end of that phone, to explain, I stayed stuck with a karmic and I didn't have the courage to tell you that I went back to an ice cold place because I didn't have my voice yet. I didn't know how to free myself. And I was worried to leave the karmic behind because I felt like they were trapped in the same energy that I was. She can finally comprehend why they didn't leave their karmic behind, and why they even weren't truthful with themselves about the real reasons of why they were stuck. The only reason I say she can understand this and conceive of it is because she reached a point where she's able to say, I know that they actually loved me, and I'm able to move forward. And I know that I can hear without it hurting me. I'm not going to be angry and emotionally charged and in anguish, and I'm not going to feel hurt because they stayed with the karmic. I'm actually going to be able to hear why they did this, how they weren't able to break themselves away. It wasn't for love. We have 8 of Wands. There's so much communication about all of this. Even the things that could have been highly emotionally charged, caused her great pain, will not cause great pain because of the energy she's in, because of the breakthrough she's had. It's an amazing place to be able to understand. I don't even want to say like human frailty, because it's not that. It's human compassion and the choices that characters make when they're wounded, traumatized, and haven't found their own courage, but also why they may seemingly care more about their karmic than about being there for the Queen of Pentacles. That's not actually what the situation was. That's probably the single most, like, that would be the pebble in our shoe for this character. If she were not in a place where she could really comprehend it, she might have taken it that way and said, oh, I get it. So you really cared about your karmic more than being there for me. I get it. I wasn't important. Well, FEFFU. But she's not going to handle it that way because of the transformation she's gone through, because of the differences. Now, she had great pain. And I kind of feel like this isn't fair that she had to go through this. Of course not. But she's transformed her own thoughts on things, her own energy on things. And she's actually moved forward with her life and has a different viewpoint on, who is going to be a part of her life story and who remains a part of her life story, or, does she grow beyond certain people? I don't know if this means she's simply going to say, you know what, it's okay. Or if she's going to say, it's okay, and yes, I want you back. I don't know. I don't know how this goes. I can only say that there's a really great conversation that can now happen about all the most agonizing bits and pieces, the unfairness, the pain that she went through. She's going to be able to sit there and hear them describe why they did what they did, why they stayed with the karmic, why they stayed stuck, why they couldn't be honest about it. And she's not going to be triggered by it. And I think that's maybe, again, the biggest message in this story is, how can something seemingly so awful and so painful become something that can be discussed and there's not the agony behind it? We have the Emperor, we have the Strength card, we have the Queen of Cups. You know what? This is one of those storylines where none of what happened is like supposed to be said, oh, well, that's okay. He stayed with some other person instead of being with her, and now he gets to have his cake and eat it too and bounce back into her life, and she has to take him back. That would be a really sloppy, really insignificant, and kind of an insulting story. We've taken 47 minutes to describe this story in great detail and seen all of the little tiny details that went into the hows and the whys, and we've seen these characters more as like humans with even though they're fictional, humans with human considerations and how do you make the right choice? How do you abandon a karmic when they've been through the same stuff? And but when do you find your own voice? The struggles that a character has. And we can kind of say, well, how would she put herself in their shoes? Would she have made different decisions? This isn't a like, well, you should have done this, you didn't do that, so therefore you're an asshole, and forget it. That is not what the storyline is. Instead, what it says is this love that was found a long time ago has only just now evolved into the time where it can finally come to this shining, like new dawning day, because he's shifted into the Emperor. He's found his voice as an Emperor. Maybe it's, it looks a little wobbly because he's trying to take a sip of liquid courage before he can call and ask to talk to her and explain, I've ended things with a karmic. Let me explain to you why I was ever with that karmic. Let me explain all of this. Let me go ahead and to finally discuss these things. And she's in a place where she can hear it. So I would say that they've both reached Emperor status. They've both reached a place where, sometimes like we can think that we're having a crappy day sometimes because let's say it's a big deal. We got a flat tire on the way to work. We get there late to work. It's a crummy day. And then while we're there, I was going to had to get towed, and the car has to get fixed, and, it's just awful. And then we find out that our colleague or coworker has had some terrible medical diagnosis. All of a sudden, our car tire is really, really small by comparison. All of a sudden, the things that we thought were the biggest deal in the world are just pale. And it doesn't mean that that's not still a tough day for us. But sometimes when we look at things and we say, you know what, as we either have other things to compare our own traumas to, or as we simply mature beyond certain experiences or have enough time to think about things differently, sometimes we can see an entire situation from this higher perspective, and we realize sometimes it wasn't all about us. And I think that's what they've both done. They've both reached a point where it's like he realizes he had to find his own voice. So on that hand, it was all about him. But the reason he stayed with a karmic is because he was caring about another person that he felt a sense of responsibility and compassion for, even though he also needed to find his strength to be able to move forward and love the person that he loved. And he's done that. Meanwhile, that Queen of Pentacles has found the energy in herself to realize if somebody cannot choose to be with me, sometimes it's not because I'm somehow less worthy. In fact, maybe in reality, my life has actually been in a better place, even though I was really wounded that he wasn't with me. But I didn't have the same traumas as perhaps he did or his karmic did. Sometimes when you have the full story, you go, I understand why you did that. In fact, had I known all of it, I would have encouraged you to help that person. It just kind of feels like it's a very different perspective on why this can be. I don't even want to say forgiven, because we don't have forgiveness here. We actually have, there's not really a need to forgive, because there's a strength of understanding this. And there's a strength of something about like understanding how love works sometimes, because we do have the Queen of Cups. Now, obviously, this is a King and a Queen of Cups. We also had the King and the Queen of Pentacles. We have them as a matched pair, and we had them as the twin flame energy. So again and again and again, what we have is, it's like these characters were always going to be right for each other, but they took a little bit of time before they could actually be together. And maybe it would have simplified things where if in the beginning when they first met, they had said, I love you and you love me, but it's going to be a couple of years before we're together, but I'm coming back for you. If maybe that had been said right in the beginning. But that's just not the way life works. They didn't know what they didn't know. They didn't know what lessons still had to be learned. He spent some considerable amount of time lying to himself about what needed to be figured out, about the fact that he needed to find his own voice, about the fact he was karmic also. He was trapped in a cycle with a karmic and what that meant. Lots of revelations, lots of lessons to learn, but none of it was ever to insult love. And none of it was ever to insult or disregard the feelings of another person. In fact, that is something really consistent in this, that they have both each other all this time. There is a tremendous opportunity for these two to actually have a successful romance now. Okay, that was an epically long popcorn muncher with lots of dog songs in the middle of it. You guys, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. As I said at the beginning, please don't forget that this week I will be going live and do some fictional storytelling for my subscribers. So I know every time I do it, I always have people say, I didn't get the notification. I didn't know it happened. And that's what I'm trying to give everybody a little bit of a heads up. And then also just the reminder, if you are having problems getting those notifications, sometimes unsubscribe, then resubscribe, and then make sure that you click the notification bells, and that should help. So anyway, between today and tomorrow, I'm going to be doing a bunch of videos for each one of the zodiacs, for the big old super moon, the hunter's moon. I think this is a really important moon because it is the brightest that we'll have. I won't intend to do videos this long for each zodiac. I'm sorry this one got so long. You guys are awesome. EM, thank you. Oh, insert name here, you sweetie. Thank you so much. Thank you, Anne Marie. Thank you again, honey. You're so generous, so kind. Hi, Nunya. You guys are awesome. Alley Cat, Jasmine, Chrissy. Thank you, Chrissy. I really liked this backdrop. I thought it was a really cool one. I didn't have anything like it. I know I'm like in bird mode lately, right? We did birds yesterday or throughout the end of last week and now again. But Jen C, Poetic Justice, Say You, Say Me. Great to see you. Hi, Alexa, Rachel, Denisa. Hi, sweetheart. Sweet Carolina. Hi, honey. How are you doing? So nice to hear from you. I was thinking about you during all those terrible weather events. Still thinking of everybody out there, especially in Florida right now. Deserta, hi honey. Small TV, Sean Stubbs, hi. Dwayne Weathers in the house. Unique to Freak, great to catch you, honey. Hi Valerie. Oh, shout out to you in Oxford, very nice. I'm a half Brit myself, so. Kristen Alphabet, oh, so happy to see you here, honey. 01 Frequency, hi. Lisbeth, how are you? I'm glad you like the backdrop, yeah. Black Butterfly 25, Gasmussen. Hi, Patricia. Annie, thank you. I'm glad you like the long ones because this was real long. In fact, I need a sip of tea. Ethel Rose, you're cracking me up. Thanks, Diana. White Horse Patriot, great to see you. Aries says hello, trust me. Alvia, glad. I'm so glad that it wasn't too terribly loud. Ataraxia, hi. Jessica Rios, Angelica Isabel, RO, Spooky Cool Podcast. Hey, hey. All right, you guys. Hi, Crystal Suzanne. You were first in the house, sweetie. Angel, bruh, great to see you. Just learning. Hello, hello. Stephanie D. Thanks again, EM. Beautiful G. I'm glad you like the owl. Me too. Anna Boyle, hi. Hey, Tori. Taz, how you doing? Hey, Gypsy Soul. Courtney Walsh, thank you, honey. All right, you guys. Amanda Curry, hi, sweetheart. I almost missed you up there. And Darren, hi. Iona, Nicole. Hey, Vicky. Hey, Julia. Thank you, hun. All right, you guys. Take care, and I will see you in some of the zodiacs today. All right, bye for now.